Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive, and this time we're taking a look at Cupcake Brown's memoir, A Piece of Cake. Well, the title might sound light, but trust me, this memoir is anything but.
It really isn't, no.
Cupcake Brown takes us on a journey through her life, and, well, let's just say it's filled with some pretty intense stuff.
Right off the bat, what struck me was her honesty.
Yeah.
The way she talks about the abuse, the neglect, it's raw, it's powerful.
And I think what makes it even more powerful is that she doesn't try to sugarcoat it.
No, not at all.
She doesn't shy away from the hard parts.
And that's what makes it such a compelling read. You really get a sense of the systems that fail people like her, especially when she was a child.
And speaking of her childhood, well, it's pretty clear that stability and safety weren't exactly priorities in her early years.
Yeah, you can really see how that lack of a stable foundation impacted her development, her whole worldview.
Absolutely. And it's heartbreaking to read about the trauma she experienced, both emotional and physical.
It's a stark reminder of how deeply those early experiences shape us.
One thing that really stood out to me was her relationship with her mother.
Oh, yeah.
It was so complex at times. It seemed like there was love, but then there were these moments of intense neglect and even cruelty.
It's that inconsistency, right? That must have been so incredibly difficult for her as a child.
I can't even imagine.
It's like this constant back and forth between craving love and approval and then being met with something totally different. It's a classic example of what we call a double bind.
It makes you wonder how anyone could develop a sense of trust or healthy attachments in that kind of environment.
Right. When the person who's supposed to be your primary source of love and security is also the source of so much pain.
It really makes you think about the long-term impact of those early experiences.
Absolutely. It affects everything, your relationships, your self-worth, even your ability to cope with stress.
And that's where I think Cupcake Brown's unflinching honesty is so important.
Totally.
She doesn't try to downplay the effects of her childhood. She puts it all out there.
It's raw and unfiltered, and in those moments, you really see the depth of her resilience.
To me, it's even more powerful because she's acknowledging the wounds, the scars, and still finding a way to move forward.
It's a testament to the strength of the human spirit. Even when faced with unimaginable adversity, there's this innate capacity for survival, for finding meaning in the chaos.
But, exploring her childhood is just the beginning. Her journey takes her down an even darker path, one marked by self-destruction and a descent into a world of crime and exploitation. And I have to say, reading about this part of her life was really tough.
Yeah, it's heavy stuff, but it's important to understand that this period in her life isn't a clear-cut case of good versus evil.
Right.
It's more nuanced than that. She's both a victim of her circumstances and an active participant in some pretty destructive behaviors.
And it really makes you question those easy assumptions we often have about victims and perpetrators.
Exactly. It's not always black and white, and I think that's what makes her story so challenging and so important.
It made me realize how easily someone can get caught in a cycle of abuse, especially when they've never known anything different.
Especially when that's all you've ever seen.
She turns to drugs and alcohol to numb the pain, but of course that just leads her deeper into a world that preys on the vulnerable.
It highlights the way trauma can distort your perception of the world. It becomes difficult to distinguish between genuine connection and exploitation.
Reading this section, I couldn't help but think about how often we fail to see the bigger picture when it comes to these issues.
We judge, we label without understanding the complex web of circumstances that lead people to make certain choices.
There's this one moment in the memoir that really stayed with me.
Oh, yeah?
It's when she describes being arrested for prostitution. She talks about feeling ashamed, but also relieved.
It's almost like being caught offered a strange sense of security.
Right, and it raises all these questions about the role of the justice system.
Is punishment really the answer, or do we need to focus on addressing the underlying trauma and systemic factors?
Big questions.
Big questions for sure.
It's a pivotal point in Cupcake's journey, a moment where she can't ignore the consequences of her choices anymore.
But it's also the beginning of a shift, a glimmer of hope that things can be different.
And that's what keeps you reading. You want to see where she goes from there.
You're rooting for her. You want her to find her way.
And that's a journey we'll explore more in depth as we continue our deep dive into A Piece of Cake. But for now,
Yeah.
what are your initial reactions to Cupcake's story? What's resonating with you the most so far? It's easy to get lost in the darkness of her early life, but even in those tough times, you can see she's looking for something more.
That's what makes this memoir so powerful. It's about more than just surviving. It's about believing that change is possible.
And for Cupcake Brown, that change starts with these small decisions, like going back to school to get her GED.
Right, like something many of us take for granted.
Exactly. But for her, it's a huge deal. It's like taking control, even if it's just a tiny step.
Those small decisions, they're not so small, really. They're a change in how she sees herself.
I see what you mean.
She's rejecting the story that's been forced on her. It's about agency, about proving she's capable of more.
Like each accomplishment is an act of defiance.
Exactly. It's saying, I'm not defined by my past, I'm writing my own story.
And that's where I think education plays such a huge role.
Oh, absolutely.
It's not just about knowledge, it's about self-worth, building
It's
confidence.
about empowerment. It's about proving she deserves a better life.
And education becomes this lifeline for her. It gives her a reason to keep going.
It's inspiring how she just throws herself into it. She's not just going through the motions, she's excelling, setting her sights on law school.
Law school, wow.
It's a dream that seemed impossible given where she started.
It really makes you appreciate the opportunities you've had.
It's a powerful reminder that access to education isn't a given. For some, it's a real uphill battle.
And it's a testament to her resilience that she didn't let those barriers stop her.
Absolutely.
But it wasn't always easy for her, right? There were setbacks, times when she faltered.
Oh, of course, the memoir doesn't pretend it was easy to escape addiction and trauma.
Right.
She's honest about the relapses, the doubts, the moments when she almost gave up.
There's a passage where she talks about feeling the pressure of law school and wanting to go back to what felt familiar.
Even if it was destructive.
Right. And it just shows that recovery isn't a straight line.
It's a process. There are bumps along the way.
And it's in those moments that her resilience shines through even more.
Instead of giving in, she reaches out for help. She leans on the people around her.
It shows how crucial it is to have support.
People who believe in you, who encourage you.
It's a testament to the power of human connection.
Absolutely. We don't have to face our challenges alone.
What's striking is that through all this change, her writing style stays the same.
That raw honesty.
Yeah, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means exposing her own flaws.
That's what makes her voice so authentic, so compelling.
She's not trying to be a perfect victim or a hero.
She's just a human being who's made mistakes and struggled and triumphed.
It makes her story so relatable.
It reminds us that we all have our own battles to fight.
And it gives us permission to be imperfect.
To acknowledge our struggles without shame.
And that honesty makes her memoir such a powerful critique of the systems that failed her.
By telling her story without holding back, she forces us to confront uncomfortable truths.
It's like she's holding up a mirror to society, showing us the consequences of ignoring suffering.
It's a powerful message. It challenges us to examine our own biases, our own complicity in these systems.
It makes you think about how we judge people, especially those who have faced trauma or addiction.
We focus on the behavior without understanding the underlying causes.
We need to move beyond those simple judgments.
Recognize the complexity of human experience.
Her story is a reminder that we all have the potential for both darkness and light.
And that understanding requires empathy, a compassion.
What's powerful is that her story doesn't offer a fairy tale ending.
No, it doesn't sugarcoat anything.
Her journey is messy, it's ongoing.
And that's what makes it so real.
It's a reminder that healing is a process, a journey.
Not a destination.
It requires effort, vigilance.
And it's not just about individual resilience.
Right.
We need to address the systems that contribute to these cycles of abuse and exploitation.
Cupcake Brown's story is a call to action.
To create a world where everyone has a chance to heal and thrive.
It's about dismantling systems that perpetuate inequality, building communities that offer support.
And fostering a culture of empathy and understanding.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I'm curious, what parts of Cupcake's transformation stand out to you? What lessons can we take from her journey as we face our own challenges and try to make a positive impact? Thinking about Cupcake's story, it really challenges how we usually think about redemption.
It's not about being perfect or erasing the past, right?
Exactly. It's not that simple. Her story shows that recovery is an ongoing thing.
A journey with ups and downs.
Yeah, there's this line in the book that stuck with me.
Oh, yeah.
She says redemption isn't about being perfect, it's about being whole.
Powerful. It's about recognizing those broken parts we all have.
And it's not pretending the past didn't happen.
No, it's about learning from it,
And finding a way to grow.
Cupcake's story shows us that true freedom comes from accepting all of ourselves.
The good and the bad.
Exactly. And it's interesting, even after she becomes a lawyer and achieves success, she doesn't forget where she came from.
She uses her platform to advocate for others.
To shine a light on those systemic issues that lead to abuse and exploitation.
It's pretty inspiring. She's not just talking about it, she's actively working to make a difference.
It makes you think about how we can all use our own experiences to do good.
Turning pain into purpose.
And it's about recognizing that our stories are connected. When we share our struggles, it creates space for others to do the same.
It challenges stigma, fosters empathy.
It helps build a more compassionate society.
Cupcake Brown's story also really emphasizes the importance of second chances.
Believing in redemption for ourselves and for others.
We all make mistakes, but it's never too late to turn things around.
to try to make things right,
It's about offering grace and compassion.
and understanding that healing takes time.
And it's not just about individual effort, right?
Right, we need to look at the systems, the structures that make it so hard to break free from those cycles of abuse.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into A Piece of Cake, I keep coming back to this question.
What's that?
How can we create a world where stories like cupcakes are less common? How can we break down those systems that perpetuate inequality?
It's a challenge, but it starts with awareness, with empathy, with action.
We need to create a culture of support and second chances.
A culture where everyone has the opportunity to heal and thrive.
Well said. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into A Piece of Cake. A memoir, Cupcake Brown's story, is a testament to the power of the human spirit. It's about resilience, transformation, and hope. It's a story that I think will stay with us all for a long time.
It certainly will. If her journey resonated with you, I highly recommend checking out her memoir. It's a powerful read.
And that's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening.